So when it came to the government's MK Ultra hearings that happened a few days ago, I think this was one of the more important things that was said. This person you're going to see speaking is Stephen Kinzer, who's an American author and journalist, and what he says is spot on.
Could illuminate this case. I would also point out that in addition to searching for unknown documents, this committee could do a tremendous service by simply asking for the end of redactions on the documents that we now have. There are reams of documents about MK Ultra that have heavy sections redacted. In the 1970s, this was justified by the argument that it had only been 20 years since these terrible things had happened and revealing details might affect national security. Now 70 years have passed. That argument can no longer be valid. So I would urge this committee to try to fill out all the blank spaces in the documents that we have, because we know that is there. This task force could also consider trying to determine whether some new incarnation of MK Ultra exists today. When the main phase of MK Ultra drew to a close in the early 1960s, Sidney Gottlieb concluded that it had failed. That in fact, there is no such thing as mind control. Even if he was right, however, he may have been right only at that time. In the many decades since then, there have been enormous advances in cyber technology, in artificial intelligence, in neuroscience. Covert agencies may have access now to tools for mind control that Sidney Gottlieb could not even have imagined. It may well have been true in 1963 that mind control is a myth, but whether it's still true is uncertain. And that question of whether mind control might now be possible under our new circumstances is something that has presumably occurred to scientists who work for secret services, including our own. This task force has a chance to connect the past to the future. A renewed effort to find MK Ultra documents from the 1950s and to fill out the redactions of those that have been released might shed new light on how the CIA operated during that period. It could also inform a new inquiry into whether any mind control projects are now underway inside the US security apparatus. That might help prevent the emergence of a 21st century MK Ultra that could be even more destructive than the original.
If you want to know if these mind control programs are still underway, and trust me, they are, as you're going to see later on in this video, look no further than what they're talking about at the World Economic Forum, more specifically, Nida Farahany.
There's some really interesting research that we can plant false memories in the brain. People believing that they've been at Disney World with characters who are not Disney characters, taking photographs with those characters.
Many of those products are hitting the market this year. They will be capable of doing is very high-level brain state reading. Things like, are you tired? Are you paying attention? Is your mind wandering? Are you happy or sad?
One of the emerging areas that's really interesting in law neuroscience is pain detection. And once we understand the circuitries that cause pain, I guess the question is, could we then instill pain and use that in many coercive measures in the legal system as well?
Every camera you walk past that is integrated with AI systems increasingly can decode mental states. It's kind of like the final piece in the puzzle. You might be able to make inferences about what a person is thinking from their facial expressions and from their eye movements.
I started to see companies with prototypes that were embedding brain sensors into everyday devices like a watch or a wristband or headphones or earbuds. The promises of being able to access your own brain, change your own brain, and even potentially access the brains of others is extraordinarily exciting. Well, you'll say, privacy is gone already, it's all right. But wasn't your brain the one area in which you thought you would always have some sense of privacy?
And this is our last batch of privacy, I think. And it's almost over. All right?
We can pick up and decode faces that you're seeing in your mind. Simple shapes, numbers, your PIN number to your bank account.
The reason why I wanted to use that clip was for a few reasons. For one, MK Ultra never failed. It was successful. But like what came before it, these projects get better and better. They do away with the old projects and they create completely new ones under different names. All you hear them talk about is MK Ultra, but you never hear them really talk about what came before and what came after MK Ultra had stopped. And yes, it did indeed stop, but the only reason why it had stopped was not because it failed, but because something bigger and better had taken its place under a different project name. Like for example, one of those projects being Project Monarch, which they found they could crack the mind from the womb with different techniques like shock therapy. Even though multiple people have come out and said they were under these horrific experiments since they can remember as children, MK Monarch is treated as a conspiracy theory, something as a myth. What came before MK Ultra was MK Delta, where they used biochemicals in clandestine operations, and this was started back in 1952. When they terminated MK Delta for MK Ultra, they still brought over a lot of research that was conducted under MK Delta, especially a lot of the biochemicals and drugs that were used on individuals under MK Ultra, but it wasn't just drugs. They did the worst of the worst. Physical abuse, mental abuse, and even beyond that to get these people to crack. Sensory deprivation, you name it, and even though MK Delta had pretty much stopped for MK Ultra and some others, it was still pretty much intertwined in it. A lot of these individuals coming from prisons, coming from hospitals, unfortunate members of the public, and even those in the military. Outside of the physical and mental abuse, they were given LSD and chemicals that were found under MK Delta. But they loved the research under MK Delta so much that while they were conducting MK Ultra at the same time, they had a side project going on called MK Naomi. MK Naomi was used to experiment on the mass public with biochemical agents. Matter of fact, Operation Sea Spray was a precursor, or actually a part of MK Naomi. Operation Sea Spray was when the United States Navy spent 6 days spraying Serratia marcescens into the air about 2 miles off the northern coast of California. A lot of people over in San Francisco had gotten sick. The military came out and said, "That's our bad. We did not know Serratia could harm humans. The bug was mostly known for red spots it produced on infested food." And that was their excuse, that this was just a test agent they didn't think could harm humans, but could still give them results. Operation Sea Spray would come back up in the news in 2024 when people were noticing all this mysterious fog they said tasted and smelled like chemicals. There were people that went to the news and stated how being out in this fog gave them flu-like symptoms. They were cramping, having fever, sneezing. I even made a video stating how when I went out there, it gave me a rash. This was also around the same time the whole mysterious drone situation was happening as well, and people caught on camera these drones spraying things into the air. One of the main individuals behind MK Ultra was Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, whose name you're going to hear quite often in this hearing, was a CIA chemist who directed the program's mind control and psychological experiments. This same individual who was behind MK Ultra and said that MK Ultra supposedly had failed was also involved in Operation Sea Spray because of his specialized knowledge of chemical and biological dispersal. So you mean to tell me that the United States Navy, the military, had no knowledge that Serratia marcescens would cause harm to the public, even though they had somebody on their team that was doing just that to the public with their chemicals under MK Ultra? This individual, Gottlieb, and of course he's not the only one, there's many involved, many players involved, but he just happens to be one of the more prominent names. They're trying to gaslight the public with the whole, well, if there's something more powerful than MK Ultra or something far more advanced, the government should let us know. There always has been something far more advanced taking the last project's place. That's how it's always worked. Which there was. The last known project outside of Project Monarch was MK Search. This was the direct continuation of MK Ultra, and it was ran by the CIA and the United States Army Chemical Corps between 1965 and 1971. This program focused heavily on offensive biological, chemical, and radioactive agents to manipulate human behavior in support of sensitive intelligence operations. It was broken down under 2 sub-projects, MK Often and MK Chickwit. MK Often was a project focused on testing the behavioral and toxicological effects of various drugs and materials on both humans and animals. MK Chickwit was a project tasked with monitoring the pharmaceutical and drug developments in Asia and Europe to source new chemical samples and formulas. So again, it's not that MK Search came along because MK Ultra had failed. It's just that MK Search was bigger with multiple projects beneath it. There's no reason for MK Ultra. They want to make it seem like all these projects are under the umbrella of MK Ultra when in actuality, these are continuations of the last one. And it really makes you wonder what had taken MK Search's place, because MK Search supposedly had ended in 1973. We're talking about we're now in 50 years later. It is even possible that the projects after that involved frequencies and radio waves.
The things that we found in other Air Force documents, one in particular was a document put together in '82. The document was called Low Intensity Conflict in Modern Technology, with a foreword by none other than Newt Gingrich. One section spoke about using radio frequency radiation transmitters for disrupting human thinking, for basically debilitating troops invisibly by being able to bombard them with radio frequency that was tuned to just the right frequency, in just the right waveform, so as to totally disrupt their mental process and basically debilitate those troops.
Stephen Kinzer's right. The technologies that the public sees anyway has gotten vastly better. We're talking about social medias, AI. I definitely believe that social media is one of these projects. Of course it is. I mean, look at Facebook. A lot of people believe that it was started by Mark Zuckerberg when it was actually started by DARPA. As coincidence may have it, DARPA had a project called LifeLog, which was a research project intended to create a comprehensive digital database of a person's everyday life, and it just happened to be terminated on February 4th, 2004, which is the same exact day Mark Zuckerberg launched Facebook. One of the more bizarre things that happened at this MKUltra hearing is that the NIH, the National Institute of Health, gave a testimony, and nobody knows why.
Did you hear the applause in this room? You think the NIH has a trust problem based on how they handled COVID?
No, I do not. I think that the NIH is beloved by the American people because we know about the advances in human health and cancer treatments and heart disease and diabetes and all of the health gains that the research has produced.
Well, I think you're wrong, ma'am. I think the public has a serious mistrust issue with the NIH. Do you deny that the NIH tried to cover up the origin of COVID?
I'm not here to testify about that. That's not my area of science. I have no knowledge of that.
Do you believe that the NIH supported masking and social distancing when there was really no science to support that?
What I'm more concerned about is what's happening right now to destroy the Biomedical Research Institute that has been the envy of the world. And right now, we're ceding our leadership in biomedical research to China. That's what's happening right now.
What about covering up harmful side effects of vaccines and the role that the NIH has played in that? What do you have to say about that, ma'am?
The U.S. history of human subjects protection has evolved greatly. Numerous research improprieties from the 50s to the 70s in the United States, including the Tuskegee syphilis study, forced Congress to establish formally federally
I'm not asking you about
mandated rules.
You know what I'm asking you about? I'm asking you about how NIH handled COVID. Obviously, this is supposed to be a hearing about MKUltra, but when you gave your opening statement, and I don't even know why you were called to this hearing because you didn't offer anything about MKUltra, but since you are here and you're going to defend NIH, I'm going to call you out on it. Do you see now what I'm talking about when you say that the NIH doesn't have integrity problems and trust issues? Did you hear the applause in this room? That should tell you right now that you're pretty tone deaf to what the public thinks about how the NIH handled COVID and the cover up, not only the funding of it, but the cover up involved in the after.
Why are you at a hearing that's specifically designed to talk about a 1970s program that supposedly had failed and ended, talking about the C-19? Because this is a in-your-way face to tell you that the C-19 was among other things, it was many things, but one other things was a social mind control program. Stay 6 feet apart, wear your mask, beat your friends and family up, disown them completely if they don't want to get the jab, and people complied. Heavily complied. They controlled free speech. They literally had people afraid to say certain things when it came to the C-19. The news is trying to spin this NIH researcher's testimony as something unrelated, but for those that know, this is not unrelated. Then you have these big internet medias like YouTube and especially TikTok TikTok is its own project altogether. Not only was it designed to lower your attention span, but also hit those dopamine levels, having anybody believe that they could become a star overnight by doing the craziest things ever, the craziest stunts ever, these TikTok challenges. Specifically designed to target the younger generation, a lot of the younger generation are still taking themselves out with these TikTok challenges. Now we have AI. AI is one of their biggest and best mind control projects as of yet. They have people's realities completely distorted. People do not know what's real or what's fake anymore. This is why they've given us such powerful AI. I remember there was a time where you could say that, oh, just look at the person's hands and things like that. You can tell the video is AI, but now it's getting better and better to the point it almost perfectly replicates what a person looks like and now even says. It can match their voice quality, all just to blur the lines of reality, and they can control that. They know with fake stories and fake videos, they can control the emotions of the public. This is why everything is becoming digital. They can't change and distort what's physical, what we're actually holding with our own hands, but they can definitely change what's stored online. This is why people are noticing that a book all the way back, I believe in either 2004 or 2006, is talking about TikTok that came out in 2016. This very interesting video comes from Pre-Mr.
Mistakes were meant to be made. I hope you know that. It's what gives you the proof you were looking for and the wisdom to never do it again. I know I say this all the time, but one of life's many blessings that we ignore is the fact that we get to learn from the mistakes of the people that came before us. But soon, we won't have that same luxury. A book that came out in 2006 references TikTok. TikTok didn't come out till 2016. That's a 10-year difference. But how did they do it? How did they change the wording in a book that was already printed? They didn't. They changed the digital version. Now, in my last video, I tried to stress the importance of physical media and the ownership of it, because when you own nothing and everything is digitized, how will you know what the original is? Disney has done this multiple times before. For example, in the show called Lilo and Stitch, there's a scene that they changed where Lilo hides in a dryer from her sister. But I understand. Kids started hiding in their dryers, and that's not safe. In Netflix, they have a show called 13 Reasons Why, where they changed a very explicit scene, but I understand. The scene was a little explicit. In Grand Theft Auto, the remaster of Vice City, they changed the shirt on a character. He had a Confederate flag on his shirt, and they changed it to a skull, but I understand, because maybe that's too offensive nowadays. But my thing is, what happens when we no longer understand? Better yet, what happens when we don't even know that they did it or don't remember? You see, when you play with fire, you get burnt. That's the proof of your mistakes. But remembering that fire was hot, that's the wisdom. All you got to do is go back. And physical media gave us that wisdom. All we had to do was go back. And now we're moving into a time, into a future where there will be no physical media and no ownership. Everything will be digitized and licensed so they can change it whenever and to whatever they feel like it at any time. That creates a society of people that need to see, play, view, and consume everything as soon as it comes out and fear that it won't be the same the next time they go around to check for it. In a society with no patience, no archive, no proof, and no shared memory will always be the easiest to manipulate because they have no choice but to trust the version that is given to them. In the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful day. You know I love you and I'll see you tomorrow. But if I don't, stay out of trouble.
In this digital era that we're in, where less and less things are becoming physical, this gives them whole new ways to control the mind, control the flow of information, control what they want us to see and know. But here's what's even creepier. I made a video before about The Cosby Show. There was a scene where Theo and his girlfriend were talking about Joan of Arc. But if you were to watch the streaming version, that scene is no longer available. It was changed.
Sneak off somewhere.
Just think it wasn't what it looked like. We were rehearsing Joan of Arc.
What the heck? Joan of Arc kissing anybody. You show me anywhere Joan of Arc kissing somebody, then we have no problem.
When it came to the streaming version, an AI took over and re-edited that scene to make it less controversial by taking out Joan of Arc. The AI created a whole new scene, and I'm sure a lot of people were not aware unless you put both scenes side by side. So they still have the public under mind control to this day under different forms, under different sub-projects, but they are full steam ahead, probably more so now than ever before, and the government is fully aware. In this hearing, they're doing the whole maybe, could be, they might be. No, they are.
Greatly appreciate your work there. I was intrigued by one of the statements that you made. Based on your research to the MKUltra program, they were actually successfully able to replace memories. And because of that, I'm wondering if, and Dr. Kinzer, you can chime in if you have any knowledge of this, did the program continue, and do you think that the program in some aspect is still continuing today?
I mean, again, we don't even have to ask this individual, just see what they're talking about at the World Economic Forum. A lot of the mind control is also in the music industry, Hollywood, so it's kind of creepy to know that the last project they talk about was 50 years ago. The interesting part is if the government came out and listed the names of the projects that came after MK Search, but these projects also included Hollywood, the music industry, video games, the internet, social media, AI, would people, the public, give this stuff up? And I highly doubt it. And outside of technologies, what about the food industry? There's a lot of chemicals that go into these foods. We have the Monsanto Act, which protects Monsanto and a lot of these companies when it comes to GMOs being placed into foods. What role does food play when it comes to being under a mind control project? Or I shouldn't say what role does it play, because we know the role that it plays, but what is the name of the actual project that it's under?
They don't need to put a chip in you to control you. All they need is a frequency. And the crazy part, the proof is sitting in U.S. patents for anyone to read. In 1992, U.S. Patent 5159703, it laid out a way to send silent subliminal messages straight into your subconscious. No speaker, no headphones, nothing. Then there's U.S. Patent 6587729, a system to change brain waves remotely, targeting frequencies. That's the backbone of what's known as V2K, voice to skull. Now imagine a whole crowd suddenly feeling anxious, restless, or compliant, and no one can explain why. That's not paranoia, that's technology. And once they can influence what's in your head, they can push you towards purchase. They can push you towards a belief, or even a vote without you even realizing it. Your frequency is your shield. If you do not know how to protect it, you're already at risk. The patents are public. You need to read them. And if you want steps to protect your mind, my frequency trap guide, the link is in my bio.
That video came from Lost to Love Life, and yeah, frequencies is one other biggest things. They have been doing this for quite some time now. Just take a look at this older video clip and imagine how far they have come since this video clip.
You can't hear this. It's going to, I haven't turned it on yet. When I do, it's going to blast out a 65 kilohertz beam. Because the wavelength is so small, it doesn't spread. Because 65 kilohertz has a wavelength like that.
So it's going to be, in that sense, similar to a laser. It just comes right out as a beam.
Now, how do we make that audible? Well, they put a modulation on top of the 65 kilohertz. There's a modulation. And now, here's the next thing I have to tell you. That 65 kilohertz is very high amplitude. It won't hurt you, we don't think. Okay? You certainly can't hear it, and we don't think it'll hurt you. And it's very high amplitude. And what happens when you have two sound waves like this, sound plus sound can create sound, but only at high amplitudes. At low amplitudes, sound waves just travel right through each other. You may be sort of familiar with this. But at high amplitudes, you can create sound. So what happens in this apparatus is the audio sound, the sound that you're going to hear, is actually created in the beam, not here.
And because it's created in the beam, and it stays in the beam, we have a beam of sound.
So let me demonstrate this for you. Let me turn it on. And I'm going to find the piece of music that we like.
Yeah.
You may not like it.
The Eagles? You like the Eagles? Okay, good. Oh, we have a friendly audience this year.
Yeah. I think they're just saying it to make us feel better.
Right. All right.
worth the $2,000. It's not our money. Now, the sound that you're hearing is being created in this beam. It almost sounds like it's coming from your head. So let me try to scan the whole audience just so everybody gets to hear this. Absolutely remarkable. Pete, are you getting it? Let's try to, one more thing. Let's try to bounce it off the wall. Raise your hand if you can very clearly hear it. I'm going to try to bounce it off the wall. Look at where the hands are raised. You can't hear this. It's going, I haven't turned it on yet. When I do, it's going to blast out a 65 kilohertz beam. Because the wavelength is so small.
And it goes back a lot farther than that with things like Voice to Skull. This video comes from Too Much of a Coincidence.
We went from Operation Wandering Soul during Vietnam to Voice to Skull technology within a couple of years. Operation Wandering Soul was a PSYOP campaign that was carried out by U.S. soldiers during Vietnam. It played off of Vietnamese spiritual beliefs, especially with death in the afterlife. The U.S. and South Vietnam forces created these eerie ghost recordings. There was ghostly cries and wails and voices all in Vietnamese, designed to sound like the voices of dead Viet Cong soldiers. They were hoping to lower morale or prompt desertions or at least disrupt sleep. Now, reports on how well this worked are kind of mixed. I think they should have just used the Voice to Skull technology that was already available. After the Vietnam War, the military and intelligence agencies continued their research into non-lethal weapons and crowd control methods. There are declassified documents from the 70s all the way through the 90s that shows interest in things like acoustic weapons, infrasound, microwave auditory effects, and subliminal messaging. This research is often tied to DARPA and the CIA, with projects like SSSS, Silent Sound Spread Spectrum, and the Psychological Operations Doctrine. One of the most interesting is the Fry effect, or otherwise known as the Voice of God tech. This is the microwave auditory effect, and it is a well-documented phenomenon. It is where people can hear sounds or speech that is directly produced inside their head. This is when they're exposed to certain pulsed microwave frequencies. The Fry effect is named after Dr. Alan Fry, and he was the first one to publish about it in 1961. That's right, 1961. And this is how it works. When pulsed microwave energy hits the human head, it causes a very slight rapid heating of the tissue. This heating causes tiny thermoelastic expansions that occur in the brain and the inner ear. These expansions create acoustic waves inside the skull, which the auditory system interprets as sound, even though no sound wave is entering through the ear from the outside. And the result is perceived clicking or buzzing, could be hissing, or if encoded correctly, could sound like words. Now, the sound is not subconscious. It's consciously heard, but it seems to be coming from inside the head instead of externally. Now, the U.S. military funded research to see if they could use this in voice transmission, or as a non-lethal weapon. And there are declassified documents from the 70s and the 80s showing these experiments. And this is where the rumors of the Voice of God tech came from. And of course, there is no public proof that this has ever been used on civilians. But I personally think it's crazy to think that we've had this technology since 1961 and it's never been expanded, explored, or used.
Exactly. If they had that type of technology back then, just imagine what they're doing today, how it's being casted today from our phone screens, our computer screens, and just how many people are being impacted by this, like this video clip from Eric Munoz.
All right, so I wanted to let you guys know that it's very likely they're going to start deploying this weapon. This is a real weapon. It is real. It is real. They're going to start deploying this weapon more and more. And if people are telling you they're hearing these things, you might want to take them seriously.
Hundreds of people in the valley say they are hearing voices in their heads. And those voices are being transmitted by microwave or other methods.
Well, several viewers asked us to investigate what they call electronic harassment. KMIR 6's Angela Monroe joins us now with what she's discovered. Angela.
Electronic harassment, synthetic telepathy, voice to skull technology. Chances are you haven't heard of these terms, but after searching the internet, I found dozens of websites dedicated to the phenomenon and several Valley residents who say they're victims.
How much more can you invade me?
than to go into my brain. It sounds like somebody else is reading the book, only it's thoughts.
We're not having a group hallucination. This is actually something that's happening.
These men all live in the area, didn't know each other before the voices started, and say someone is playing mind games with them.
Mostly it's a lot of derogatory comments about whatever you're thinking about.
Only time I ever had a whole sentence, he said, "This is not about you," which just frosted me. If it's not about me, what the hell am I going through all this for?
Kevin Bond says he used to have a normal life.
I was living in the San Diego area. I was clerking for a federal judge, and I noticed that I was being followed by a whole bunch of people.
According to the websites, what Bond is describing is called gang stalking. He moved to Palm Springs to escape.
I started hearing, as you'll hear, hearing voices and what they'll call voice to skull or microwave hearing.
Bob Stansfield says his experience was similar and started a decade ago.
They were active in following me around here, and I started hearing the voices a little bit after the vehicular stalking.
Randall Ringer says the voices started when he was undergoing chemotherapy.
The first thing that was said was Randall Ringer. And I sat up straight and I went to into the bathroom, and I looked in the mirror, looked myself in the eyes, and I said, did that really happen?
Bond says he's found more than 300 victims locally and is tracking others across the state through billboards. In Johnson Valley, a Freedom House just opened to help people who believe they are being targeted.
To many of you who find yourselves the object of covert harassment, that there is hope and that you are not alone, and that we are striving to find legislation and we're working towards freedom for all.
Derek Robinson leads a national group called Freedom from Covert Harassment and Surveillance. He says he knows who's playing mind games.
Rogue government officials that are sponsoring this, also corrupt business officials, and private citizens.
And he also told us how.
Most of it is delivered by microwave, and I believe it's satellite delivered, whether someone is on a remote location using a laptop or next door using the desktop.
Bond says neurotransmitter chips that run off body electricity have been inserted into some people.
And they assign cell phone numbers to them. The cell phone numbers are then run through a computer, and a computer translates your thoughts. This crime has been available to the military for 60 years.
Yeah, so I used to think all of these people were crazy, not so much anymore. But one thing I was thinking as I was watching that, do you think it's possible that they might put a voice into a whole bunch of modern day Christians' heads? A bunch of people that know that Jesus is coming back. Do you think it's possible that you might be hearing a voice that you think is God? And it might not be, but it's part of Project Bluebeam. Do you think that's a possibility? Anyway, type your comments below.